also get a lot of people calling me out for being a Daniel Dallin copy. So, wanted to address that elephant as well. How do you feel about it? Are you riding the Daniel wave? Or how do you feel? Do you feel like it's dying down a little bit again? Or what's your view on that?
I think...
Matthias, I'm curious. What are you drinking today? What's your beverage of choice for this session?
I'm drinking...
Because it is a coffee inspo session after all, right?
It is a coffee inspo session. That's what except this time it's online, not in person, like we usually do it.
And I'm actually jealous because because I was about to say it looked like an AeroPress, and I'm over here sipping like some taps on ice, like some Dolce Gusto coffee tap, and it tastes very honest, very humble tasting coffee, which I don't mind.
Nothing wrong with a humble coffee to start the day.
I don't know if you would go with that though. I mean, for you, what humble means something else to you, I guess, with the coffee consumption.
No. I actually think like when I do like business travel, I'll like go for that hotel like those like, how do you call it, like those buffet coffee machine coffees, and they're always so bad, and I feel like it just resets my taste buds in a way that I can just finally like I can re-experience everything else when I get back home.
I can relate, man. Yeah, after 4 weeks of living in the Berlin bubble and tasting 10 different specialty coffees. Yeah, it is.
And here you are getting humbled.
Man, it feels good. It feels good to be humbled. And of course, it's also easier when you have a beach view in front of you. Let's actually see if I can switch the camera real quick for everyone to see the setup right now. Can you see it?
Mm-hmm.
So, where Barcelona has, or Mataró, which is north of Barcelona, has great sea views and great weather, it doesn't have as great of a coffee, but that is okay. And with that, also a warm welcome to everyone tuning in, and to you, Matthias, for joining this beta test of a podcast show, of a live stream. And the idea stemmed from Matthias and I co-working frequently, and both being very much so into not only building our businesses, but also creating content and playing the infinite game of personal branding. And we said, hey, let's do a coffee inspo sesh where we both sip a coffee and talk through learnings and subject matter questions surrounding our business ventures, but of course also surrounding our content creation journey. Perhaps we'll give some insights into our content workflows and how we are combining our audience building efforts with our business building efforts, and how there's, synergy between the two. And we'll just take it from there. And if anyone is actually watching live, then feel free to also ask questions in the chat, and we can see if we can answer some questions. But I think we got a couple of people on LinkedIn. Yeah, we got a couple of people. Marcel Eberhard, shout out. Yes, it is an honest coffee tasting. By the way, honest is actually a compliment, because the number one food chain in Barcelona is called Honest Greens. And I am officially starting a petition to bring Honest Greens to Berlin and to Zurich and to Copenhagen and everywhere else in the world.
What's the most comparable one in Berlin right now? Is there something comparable?
Club Kitchen. Club Kitchen is solid. Good bowls, healthy lunch options. But it's like a lunch place, and that's the difference. Honest Greens is open till 11 p.m. every single day. They even have honest beans. Speaking of coffee, every food location also has an honest beans integration. So nothing comparable yet.
We'll get there. Maybe that's our next business once we exit our current ventures.
Well, then let's get into some of the current ventures. And also, quick heads up, I think there's a little bit of a delay. So if there's any awkward silence, then just use it as an excuse to meditate and take some deep breaths. And we'll work our way through the connectivity issues. And without any further ado, Matthias, we already settled that you're drinking a delicious Aeropress filter coffee in your Berlin home base. But what I'd also be curious about in, light of this content founder angle is if there's a piece of content or a creator that you're really into right now, like anyone you're watching, wherever it might be, any content piece you've stumbled across, just something that stands out recently.
Yeah, actually, that's a really easy question to answer. Right now, I'm obsessed with this one guy. He's called Ali Gallup. Does that ring a bell for you, Marvin?
I don't think so. Tell me about him.
No? Okay, yeah, no. He's like, I don't know how to explain it. Like he's also an agency owner, so he has a creative agency. He's based in London, and he just does very infrequent YouTube videos. He does long form YouTube, just like on very I would say spontaneous, sporadic topics. And his most recent video was, I think it was Stop Pouring, Start Drinking. And it's just this 13-minute deep dive documentary into his life and this concept of that his analogy is that water is like knowledge, and you keep filling up knowledge, you keep filling up your glass of water, but if you don't actually drink the water, if you don't actually execute on the knowledge you gain, all you're doing is you're just mindlessly just getting more and more, but you're not. But as long as you don't turn that into action, there's not much of a point in that, right? And I think that's such a good way. Just like, I think one side, just like the story he tells with that, and I think the bigger part is just how he does the content creation, where he's a small creator, but if you go in the comments, it's all big YouTubers, because like they just really appreciate his storytelling and how he does it, and he just wraps stories inside of stories inside of stories in a way that it just keeps you hooked for 30 minutes, and I think that's an art in itself.
Higher. Well, first off, the takeaway about the knowledge application, it rings home, because I remember back in the days, I would be like, oh, I should probably learn coding. So I like sign up for Code Academy, and then I code for a week, and then I'm like, well, there's nothing really I can apply this to. And then I'm like, I should probably learn, I don't know, WordPress, just because somebody online is, talking about WordPress. And then, there's like skill learn fatigue, because you feel like you need to know everything from the get-go, whereas it's much more important to get motion going and then learn what you actually need when the time comes, and to also drink the water as you said it. So
yeah, I mean, imagine trying to be a content creator and just thinking, I need to understand a camera first before I even start making videos. Like, you would never be able to start. Like, it's impossible.
Bro, 100%. Or imagine if you like overthink hosting your first live stream podcast, and you try to, prepare for more than 30 minutes. Like, that's insane.
That'd be crazy.
But okay, shout out Ali. That's our content founder of the week right here. And you told us about kind of him sharing his story inside of his story, and, the layers that went into that. But Matthias, you wouldn't be a content founder without your own story. So I know that you're, doing some YouTube stuff at the moment, building some startup that we'll get into in a second, but, you've done a couple of things in the past. So if you could share your experience of, first ventures to where you got to where you are today, could you give us a little rundown?
Do you go the content route or do the venture route?
Bro, I think it's always like in harmony, so you should balance both. What goes first
You
for
just
you?
said both. Okay. Let's do a more content theme. I think that is a theme of this live stream / podcast. So I'd say for me, it was actually really interesting. It's always been about content. Like when I was a teenager, the first videos I did was actually, we were just doing free diving videos in our local swimming pool. Then that turned into skate videos. We were just like skateboarding. We weren't good. We were shit. Like we were filming like three stair type skate jumps and falling down, and it was fun. Turned that into dance videos, and that was essentially how I got into making my first money, was just like making content, right? So I did photography for some dancers, some dance crews. I did videos for dance. I did some stuff also non-dance related. Like it's always like freestyle sports related. So like either skateboarding, freestyle skiing, yeah, but mainly dance, I would say, and that was like the first like kind of edge into I would say it's entrepreneurship, just doing your own thing, building your own business around. You make money, you reinvest that money into buying a better camera, you film more people, they give you more money, and then you buy more gear with that. So I wasn't really making money per se for a long time, but it was just felt like you were upgrading your business, and that's kind of my first foray into content and entrepreneurship in general. And I'd say, long story short, like essentially what we did from that is just realizing that as a creative, it's a very lonely journey. So we built a community for creators. That was my first bigger thing. We had a shit ton of creators, I'd say around the whole DACH area, who were just part of our community. And we did these huge events. We were doing like, I think our max was like 300 something people. We had a whole concert with like musicians playing. We did like get-togethers. We had a pro workshop with like people from Sony who came over, and like it was like a festival for creatives. That was like essentially what we were doing pre-COVID. Turned that into an agency again. Did a lot of consulting for a lot of different types of brands. A lot of side gigs as well in between this. Worked at a few startups. Did a few other startups as well. And long story short, ended up after that whole like chaos of the pandemic at an agency called Odaline. I'm actually wearing a shirt right now just because
Shout out
we just have
Odaline.
good merch. Shout out Odaline if anyone's watching that at some point. Yeah, and spent the last 3 years essentially just helping the guys, yeah, Nico, Marin, Alina later as well, just building up like a really cool strategy slash consulting slash communications agency, and did some really cool campaigns, cool projects with some of the biggest brands in Germany. That was really fun. How big was it that we started? Like we were like, when I joined, it was just the three of them, or when I was first up with them, and then when I left in May this year, it was, I think we're nearing 30 people, so quite of a big jump there. And yeah, but I just had to make that jump, just had to get back into my own business again. And now we're building Avlana since, yeah, almost 4 months now. And we're doing essentially just video labeling for video post-production. So we just, and in the most raw form, we just create a lot of hashtags for videos and use that to make assembly of videos easier and faster.
And of course, I sent you that voice note on how me and the team could actually use what Avlana is supposed to do at some point.
But a good one.
Right now. Like we need it right now. But before we get into Avlana, like first off, I had no idea that you actually did these events and these like little festivals. So that's awesome. Like how long did you do it for? How did you actually get the people to come to the event? Because building a community and starting a festival in theory might sound simple enough, but like, how do you get people to show up?
Honestly, it was really simple. Like the idea was really just like, let's bring creators together. And we had a small following, each of us. Actually, I used to have a big Instagram account. I deleted it, and then I was like, I'm done with social media, and then I started a new one. So I actually used to have like, I think it was like 10, 20K followers. Not back in the day, it was a lot. This was like 2013, 14, right? Like different dimensions. But yeah, so we just did stories saying, hey, we're going to meet up in Zurich, and we expected like 10 people to come. I don't quote me on this, but I think like 40 to 50 people came. We were like, what the frick? Let's get a sponsor. We got like, back then it was Lemonade, like the charity brand. They were like please sponsor this. And then they were like, yeah, sure, whatever. And then we did another event. We sold them on 50, 100 people showed up. And then we were like, okay, that's a cool thing. And then we like calculated, like if you put all the followers together, how big was the reach of the event? And it was enormous. I think we were already like in multi-millions already there in terms of just combined following. And then we were like, okay, let's do it again. And we got some really cool brands. We got like Sony that sponsored us with like cameras and everything. We got Migros. We got like some really cool, just like some street fashion people as well coming in as well. And third event, like again, we expected 100 people. I think 160 showed up. And then the peak was the fourth event where like over 300 people showed up to our fourth event in Bern. And and the police came because they thought it was a demonstration, but it wasn't. It was literally just us photographers and videographers just trying to hang out and chat. And that's when we realized we had to professionalize it. So then we just set up a whole team, had a lot of volunteers come in and just essentially just professionalize the whole thing and build an association around it. Yeah.
And that's awesome. And then you said you did some freelance work, some agency work, some consulting work on your own before joining Odaline. So why did you end up joining another company, another agency, rather than just continue building your own? And then we'll dive maybe a little bit into the learnings of starting a service business, which is what both you and I kind of started with, at least. I'm still doing it. You're now going all in on tech, but yeah, can you explain a little bit about your reasoning of not going all in your own agency and service business versus joining Odaline?
Honestly, I think it was really just a bad timing on our side for our bigger service agency. So we had just like kind of did a spin out from the association that we set up from our creator community. We like, let's go. We don't want to monetize that too much because for us it's really like full access for creators. So the other side of that coin was, okay, how can we monetize this in a different way, just fund our lives, and was just essentially setting up a consultancy for the same brands you're working with on the, say, like event side, also just help them figure out how to work with creators, set up events, all that stuff. And we set our focus on events, and we set our focus on physical events and we founded the company in January 2020. And that was essentially the worst timing we could have thought about, because a month later, the whole world went into lockdown, and physical events were the last thing anybody thought about for like the next 2 years, essentially. So it was really just I still think that if we had just kept with it, it would be huge right now. Just because I'm seeing a lot of people like I just saw a model a few months ago that they did exactly what we're doing. It's called Creator Camp, and it's literally 1-to-1 our business model that we had 7 years ago now, actually, and it's working. And the difference is just that when we were doing it, it was just we planned a big event that got shut down because of COVID restrictions. We planned a smaller event a few months later that got shut down because the restrictions got smaller. And this happened 3 or 4 times. And the thing with events is that it's this like buildup of stress, and the climax is when you actually have the event. So not having that like build off after 4 or 5 times, like my team was just burnt out. I was burnt out. I was also traveling a lot in that time as well. And it's just, that combination of things was just like kind of led me to think, okay, I just want to take a step back and just figure out, okay, how can I kind of resort my thoughts for like maybe half a year, and maybe even just use the time to learn more as well. And that's when I met the guys from Odaline. And I'd never met people that were that smart, especially like for context, like Maureen, he's the CEO of License Creates Ad Scanner, which is also part of the Odaline Cosmos. And they're building a really big ad tech startup while building an agency. Jan, essentially, in Group M, in my eyes, like he essentially made influencer marketing and social media marketing a thing in these big agencies, and essentially reached the limit in these network agencies. Like I can't get further by myself, so I'm going to start my own thing. And every time I talk with them, I was like, okay, there's so much I can learn from them. So my goal was, let me just learn from them for 6 months or so, and just spin off to my own thing. And they just kept hooking me with new opportunities in a way that actually also made sense for me. So kudos to them for keeping me that long. But from day one, I told them like I'm gonna leave. So when I told them I was leaving, they were just excited. I think that's the best way to build like just business relationships, right?
100%, because it shouldn't be a secret that you want to start your own thing eventually. And so long as you address that potential elephant in the room from the get-go, there's clear alignment. And then the guys can say, yo, we got a reason for you to stay with us for a little while. And when you're ready to move on, we'll be rooting for you. We'll write the first check even if need be. That's kind of how you want to approach these relationships. So well done.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But now, bro,
just empower your people. Don't pull them down. Yeah,
empower them. But like this community idea, just like real quick, if we had to like turn this into a playbook and workshop it real quick, like I want to get into physical events. I'm doing this content founder show with you right now. You know what I'm trying to build with Notice type of beat. So if we were to take this proven business model, this community concept, this event concept that you did in the past, that you also see other influencers doing, what would you recommend me do or us do if you and I started like an event series right now? How would you approach the next steps?
I mean, like for the event thing, we actually had our own framework. Like we really built, we were like super, let's say, strategic about this whole thing. And essentially the main idea of this framework was that you to get people to build community, you have to build it in person. Like it doesn't, you need these connections. And even if you don't build it in person like all the time, like say like a school is built, or like any of these like physical clubs or associations, like you need these touch points to kind of act as multipliers. So in a nutshell, the idea was literally just, okay, let's bring cool people together, and it doesn't have to be a lot. Like we will curate this and we will have an event where the only part that we do is we bring 5 to 10 people from the whole country that we think are influential. And that doesn't mean that they're have a lot of followers per se, but that like they're like the trendsetters, the tastemakers, people that when they do something you follow because you just trust them and their taste, right? Like kind of like how like I just described like the Ali Gallup guy. Like he doesn't have a lot of followers, but if he were to push something, a lot of people would listen, and these people that would listen have a much bigger effect than if you have somebody who has, let's say, 10 million followers, but people just follow this person because I think this format's funny. You know, like it's a different kind of influence. So you find these like 5 to 10 people, you have them, like you put them on a pedestal enough that they want to talk about it themselves too. So you make it an experience, a story. They talk about it as well. So each of them bring their own people together, and you curate in a way that it's all a similar bubble, right? Of like mindsets, lifestyles, interests. And you end up with, let's say, 50 people who most of them never met each other before, and you create experience for these people in a way that they want to talk about it. Like never in our events did we ever ask somebody to post content about it. They just did because they loved everything about it. And that's kind of the way you do it, right? Like you don't say if you join, we need one story post, one Instagram post. We just say this experience is going to be so good for you that, especially if you're a content creator, like that's literally a pain point, right? Like every day you wake up and you think, what content should I make today? Because that's how I can get bigger. And all of a sudden we're telling you, hey, you just come here and the content's going to happen by itself. And it's going to be content that you've never created before, because we're going to bring the coolest people together, and it'll be even better than you've done before with even less work than you had to make it. That's the pitch. So they come, 50 people, and they experience this amazing thing. They have the best content they've ever had in their career, maybe, ideally. They all talk about it, and not just once, but 3, 4, 5 times. And the next time you do the event, like every one of these 50 people is a multiplier, and then they bring their own people. And I think that's why that multiplier effect worked for us, where essentially we doubled our community with every event, because we never focused on the growth. The growth was just a byproduct of a really good product.
And in terms of media channels, like you were promoting mainly through Instagram, did you have like some community tool you used, or you just built an email list, or how did that work?
This was 2017. Yeah, we had Instagram. That was our biggest thing for like the longest time. We had an Excel list where we literally had every community member that joined. Like the first 5 events, you have to imagine, like we literally have people on a piece of paper write down their name and their email address. Like that's how scrappy it was. But at some point we did convert to MailChimp. I think that was our way of kind of bringing that together.
Beautiful. Okay. You just planted a seed for me, and we should talk about this in our debrief, how we can make something like this happen. Okay, awesome. So you did that. You joined Odaline. You did that for a couple of years before then starting your own venture. Now to kind of like wrap up the Odaline chapter, I would describe it as kind of like your agency growth chapter, and really, tapping into big brand budgets and scaling a service business to multiple 7 figures in revenue per year. And a lot of people on LinkedIn, a lot of people that we are surrounded by, like the idea of building a service business, and most of them are in B2B. So if you were to talk to Matthias on day 1 of joining Odaline or considering to start an agency, what would be some key takeaways, some key insights that you would share with him in terms of, I don't know, customer acquisition, offer structure, fulfillment, whatever stuck with you as core lessons that you would take with you and start like a new agency with? Anything that comes to mind?
Mm-hmm. I think on one side, it's really important to remember that you have all these service agency gurus who say, yeah, you shouldn't take retainers smaller than XYZ, and you should ask more of money, more money, more money. And yes, that's true. I think one thing that people forget, especially nowadays where it's such a saturated market as well, like everybody's offering services, is that it's really hard to get to that point. And the hard part of that is like you've been there. Like you're at a point, I'd say, Marvin, where like you can actually ask for these kind of retainers. But the point being is that you can't do that off the bat because nobody trusts you and you don't have a brand. And the only way you can create brand is in a service environment to really have a really good product, which means you have to have case studies, and ideally case studies that you can really talk about. So I'd say if I were to start, I would spend, like, first of all, I would just spend a lot of time on product. So like, what exactly do I want to sell and how does that differentiate myself from other people? And really just do one thing, right? Like, it's easy to add on stuff later, but if you do, I don't know, you do short form video, you do long form video, then you do creator consultant, and you do some kind of service, and then you do personal brand. Like, if this is everything you offer and you're just starting, there's no way any of these are going to be good. They might be good enough, but that's not how you want to position yourself, especially not as a service agency. So I really just do one thing and then figure out how can I do this one thing better than everybody else. And only when you have that, and like, I think here again, like, expectation wise, like, you shouldn't think like this is going to take like a week or a month, like a year. Like, it'll take you a year to build up this one product really good. And once you have that, once you have case studies, your first case study, like, it can be free. You can say, hey, I only get paid if you make money. And it really just use that to build these cases. And only once you have these cases, once you have these branding, and once you have a way that can multiply this, like, once you find your own multipliers, then you can start scaling out in different areas and start kind of reaping the benefits where you work on all these other stuff, such as like pricing and how do we scale this higher. But I think at the start, it's really just really good product and a really good case, and just keep it that simple and have patience with that, because it will take a year and there's no going around that.
Man, 100%. Like, I could write a book on how many times I deviated from our core service or tried to add something here and something there. And then the problem is that all of a sudden you have 5 different client journeys that you take people through with different problems and different things to focus on and prioritize, instead of just nailing that one client journey and improving and improving and improving. And you spread yourself thin and you don't generate the results you could if you just focus on one client journey, on one offer, on one target audience, one outcome that you can generate. And also double clicking on patience. Like, it is, you feel like you gotta figure out everything and solve every problem ahead of time and figure out any tech integration ahead of time. But man, things just take longer, and it's okay to be patient. Like, do things slowly and do them right before you move on to the next one. I'm the king of open loops, or I used to be, and now I'm learning to close the loops as well. So I can relate.
Yeah, it's okay. Everything just seems shiny from the outside, and I think the worst part about that is that you see it, you try it, it might not even be what you want to do, and then the worst part about that is that if it were to stick, it isn't even you. Like, it's not like that you're growing for the wrong reasons, and that's not even necessarily a way to grow a business, right? Like, rather stick to what you want to do and what you're passionate about, and just give it a few more months, because it will hit off, especially if you're building something that's strong. And when it does, it'll feel so much better than if you just switch to the next shiny thing, and then all of a sudden you're doing, I don't know what, day trading crypto shitcoins and short form video, 15-second ads, and you don't even like that, but that's how you're making money, because that's what was currently the trend. Like, that's like, would you even want that, right? Like, at that point, it's not about the money at some point, and then it's just not even a fun time.
It isn't. That's what creates anxiety. It's the overwhelm of all the options out there. And so, great learnings, little insight into the agency service business world, but you actually decided not to do an agency next as you go all in on your next venture, but instead you're building a tech startup. A SaaS, right?
Yeah.
Why? And what? And how? Give us a quick rundown. What's next up?
Yeah.
And why did you go with this business?
I mean, I mean, for the why, actually, I post, my last vlog was a 1 hour vlog where I spent 20 minutes talking to you about the bootstrap route and 20 minutes talking with a different friend, JP, about the startup venture route. Shout out, JP. And I think that kind of really breaks it down. Like, what does it mean to bootstrap something? Like, different type of patience, different kind of execution, different kind of expectations, and what does it really mean to do a venture backed where like at the end of the day like you have to be a fund returner. It's like what's the like the expectations are much different. Like you like people expect you to bring like in a few years you have to be making 8-9 digit revenues, otherwise you failed, like you literally failed. Versus as an agency you can really get there slowly, and it's a different kind of return, and it really depends again on the market as well, right? Like is it one where you have to be fast or where you can allow yourself to be slow and sustainable. And yeah, so we're building video labeling. So we're building a tool that allows you to locally dissect your footage in a way that you can ideally not have to view all your footage. So you can skip the step of previewing and you can directly get into rough cuts. And the challenge here is that it's a very new thing. So like, especially because we want to do a lot of this locally, is that computers, especially let's say like MacBooks, have to be able to handle this level of machine learning and computer vision, which means that this wasn't possible until 1-2 years ago. That's the first part. And the second part is like just like large language models one side, but then you have like smaller language models which you can fine tune. That's also something that like it hasn't even become like small language model as a word wasn't a thing last year. So we're at like this part where we have competitors, but every competitor we have is so small, like they just raise money as well, or sorry, not as well, but they just raise money or they're thinking about raising money, and none of them have a really solid product yet. So it's a bit of a race. So if I'm building a personal brand agency, I would go the route I just described, where I take my time, I figure out my niche, and make sure it's a really good product, and I can really help my clients tell great stories. In my route, if you have a solution that does your labeling for you, because right now there is nothing. You have your footage and then you pull it in an editor, and we want to be in between, right? Like there is nothing there. So once you have something there that kind of works, it'll be really hard to switch, right? Like every competitor of Excel right now, like there's so many spreadsheet apps, but you're not going to switch if you have all your data in Excel, or it'll be a harder sell than if you just have data on a napkin and we tell you, hey, we'll digitize that. And that's essentially what we're doing, where it's like we have to be fast because we want to be the first mover who essentially tells the editors, hey, this is a new thing that you have to add to your workflow because it's going to be life-changing, and you won't have to worry about this honestly nasty process of getting to your first rough cut. Because like as a video creator myself, like that's the worst part of the process, getting to that first cut. Once you have that, it's fun. You can choose the music, you can work on the storyline, the pacing, like that shit's fun. What's not fun is going through 4 hours of footage and figuring out what's the 2 hours I have to throw away.
And even a step before that, for me, as like, embracing the YouTube game right now. And I use the Osmo Pocket 3 to record a whole bunch of content. And I also have my iPhone as kind of like an additional camera when I don't bring my Osmo to get additional footage in. And then I have these folders with gigabytes and gigabytes of footage and like clips and pictures and all of that. And I'm like, first off, wow, where do I store and upload this stuff? But then also, how can I make it easy for the editors to grasp what happened in all of these different clips and pictures and how they thematically differentiate, if there's maybe even certain segments within a longer video that they could use for something. But then also, I want to tackle Instagram and repurpose my long form or all of the raw footage I have and create dope short form clips for Instagram. But then again, I have soon a terabyte of raw footage. Like, how cool would it be if I could just type in keyword drinking coffee, and then it finds all the segments or parts or clips where somebody's drinking coffee, right? So does it go kind of also towards that angle? Because that's a problem I have that I would think would be fire to get solved.
I mean, the vision goes even deeper. The vision then is that it's not just drinking coffee, but it's like it breaks that down semantically and figures, okay, what does coffee mean? And it means at a cafe, grinding beans, making the coffee, drinking the coffee, and then you can ideally make a rough cut directly that has that whole process in there, and you just decide what that degree of specificity is, right? Is it really just coffee, or is it the broader idea of coffee, right?
Love it. And so you're early stage right now. What stage are you in exactly? Where are you at with the product? with the startup?
We're pre-product, pre-revenue, potential pure play, infinite potential. No, I mean we're currently working a lot with just really like we really don't have a product that we can show. That's one thing to say. Like for us, we set our goal as in like if you think about a product as the back engine, which essentially runs the product, and the front end, which is like this like how you interact with it. We never built the interacting part yet because for us it's really about figuring out okay what's the ideal engine first and really spending our all of our time on really making that engine work, right? Because like if you just talk about video tags, what you just described on a rough level, that's already possible today. Like you could throw all your video into Google Vision, Google Video Intelligence, and say create labels for me. The experience would be so bad that it wouldn't make sense for you as an editor to do that, but you could get labels for every video right now. The point there is that we don't like the objects are aside are like just one aspect of what we want people to have when we talk about labels. And our goal right now is so what is the best label? And for an editor that can be technical, which is like the hard facts of which camera was it shot on, but also somewhat like just like hard facts like what was the angle? Like, is this a wide shot, a close up? What's the focus level? How's the contrast? How are the colors? And then even deeper, like what are like actions that you can find in this? And Google Vision can find a person, but I don't know if it can find a backflip, right? And maybe you want that. So here again, it's like really find out in which areas do we need to drill deep and which areas can we keep very shallow. Like, hey, nature, urban, neutral background, then done, versus like very specific granular parts where like maybe a client wants to figure out like in the sound, I want to just have a bin with all my special effects out of a video, right? And that's something that's right now a bit harder to do. So yeah, so we're just building the back end right now. The goal is to keep building the back end for this year. And then next year, once we finish our, let's say, design partnerships, which means that we have people that give us their time and their products, their footage in exchange for us working with them and figuring out like solutions for their products for free, is that next year we do pilots, essentially where we do the same thing but in real time, and they pay us for that. That's Q1 next year. So Q3, Q4 this year is just making sure we have a good engine so that we can start driving the car next year.
Let's go. I'm patiently waiting. I'm signed up for the wait list and all of that.
We'll get you.
Also, would that be, if you could plug one thing before we transition into some personal branding and content questions, is that the one call to action for you? Is it Avlana waitlist? What's the URL? What's the CTA? Who should reach out to you to get involved?
Yeah. Avlana.co, avlana.co. That's it. We have a waitlist. We have a quick product overview. And yeah, we're just trying to push that waitlist right now.
Check it out. Okay. You said that you want to revolutionize the content workflow of editors. But I'm curious, Matthias, since you are not only building Avlana, you are also publishing banger YouTube videos every week. You are publishing LinkedIn posts. I don't know if you're doing anything else. That might be the magic combo for you right now. Not sure. But can you walk us through your current content strategy for yourself / how that also interplays with Avlana and kind of the workflow surrounding that?
Yeah, I mean, the blog idea actually came up before Avlana. Even the idea of Avlana existed. The idea was just like, can we document the journey of starting a startup like from day one, and not the fancy version, but the like you can literally go back and just see how every week of my life has been since we started the journey. And it's like, it's not fancy, it's very normal. And I think that's something that's just my goal, right? Just destigmatize that and just see that starting a startup isn't this fancy thing where you go from event to event. It's a lot of it's just me at home working all day and struggling with stuff like, I don't know, productivity and I don't know, self-doubt, whatever. Like it's just normal. And I think humanizing that and showing that everybody can be a founder, like that was the original goal. It still is the goal, but we also have the added benefit that I can essentially be a beta tester for my own product, which is a nice added benefit. And yeah, right now there's not much of a strategy. We're just trying to keep it as simple as possible. I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible. So just I have a set schedule. I film a certain amount of stuff every week. And then on Sunday, I just sit down and I just edit it and try to get that done as fast as possible. Because at the end of the day, it's still a startup that I'm primarily building, and I'm not trying to be a content creator like full time. So it's really how can you make sure the focus is on the business, but still create good content on the side.
So one YouTube video per week. and then X amount of LinkedIn posts. Is that it for now in terms of your game plan?
Yes, I would say so. I think, yeah, I'd say YouTube's a focus. LinkedIn, I think, is a really good add-on to that because it's also like a very low effort, high output type channel. At least it still is, which surprises me because it was a few years ago and it still is today. Like if I compare that to any other channel, like that's ridiculous. I think YouTube's even stronger for me personally in the sense that you just have that much more engagement. Like I only have, let's say, 1,000 people watch my last video, but 1,000 people watched a 1 hour video, right? Like that's like, calculate that, right? Like that's a different kind of engagement than the 20,000 people on my LinkedIn profile last week. Like that's interesting, but they each spent a second there maybe. So it's just a different kind of engagement, and it's also more of the type of engagement that I will actually want to look for people that support us building our startup. So I think that's why YouTube is my like what I'm most bullish about right now. How's it for you? How's your setup? Like which channels are you pushing right now, Marvin?
I mean, LinkedIn has been the minimum viable distribution channel for me for the past 5 years. So I kind of found a workflow with my team where I don't have to spend too much time and I can get 3 high quality posts out. And that is the most important revenue channel for us. So we book all of our B2B demos for our agency offer primarily through LinkedIn and then referrals. So that's kind of on the attention channel side with social media, and depending on the algorithm, LinkedIn would fit into that part of the media playbook. Then a year ago, we added the retention layer, which is what I would define as an owned audience, independent of the social media algorithm. And for us, that is the newsletter, thecontentfounder.com. And that goes out twice per month. And it's just as much value as possible in one email for a person that wants to live the life of a content founder. So leveraging content to build their businesses. And so personal branding and all of the things we do. We have an educational email course and a Notion template as the lead magnets to get people from LinkedIn to the newsletter and grow our email list. So that's how we built the bridge between attention and retention. And then 4 months ago, I recommitted to YouTube, and this time for real. So I've done YouTube about 4 years ago when I was living in New York during COVID. So the headline of my first YouTube video back then was called "The Day in the Life of a Marketing Consultant Living in NYC brackets during COVID." And that was, I think, in like April of 2020 or something. So I did that for like 10 or 12 videos and then I dropped it. And now 4 months ago, I reintroduced that for the exact reasons you shared, man. It's like, if somebody interacts and watches my videos on YouTube for like 10, 20, 30 minutes, that's a whole different layer of trust that I'm building. And it is a transparent view inside of who I am as a person, but not only myself, the team around me, the people I meet. Like I meet you for co-working, that's going to be in the vlogs. I give you a platform, people see who I hang out with. And so the rapport is just on a different level. And at the same time, I'm now building out a content source with these long form YouTube videos that I can now repurpose into short form content for LinkedIn again or Instagram. I even the other week posted just the whole YouTube vlog on LinkedIn and checked out what would happen if I did that.
How did that
and
go?
like that, it got like 10,000 views and about 120 interactions. So it did. So I got the views on YouTube.
Crazy. Yeah.
Then I got like 10x the views on LinkedIn. Now I would assume that the retention and average view duration was shorter on LinkedIn than on YouTube, but still it's like, cool. I just leveraged a content piece twice and I can still pull shorter clips from it as well. So I'd say that's right now my content strategy. LinkedIn doesn't take much time. Newsletter doesn't take much time. It's really about now doubling down on the YouTube/video side. The vlogging kind of works well as well. I have my Osmo Pocket. I just film and reflect and have a good workflow with the editors. But I also want to be a little more intentional with, for example, these types of podcasts or, kind of like mini master classes, mini, dialogues or strategy sessions to just add more structured value to my YouTube engine. But I'm going to keep on doubling down on that. It's working well, and I'm most bullish on YouTube as a new growth channel. And then, of course, sticking to LinkedIn because it just works so well.
Solid, solid. Anything that you learned from starting videos again, especially because you did it before? Like what was the difference between the time you did it 4 years ago versus the time this year? What changed?
One one major change or difference. That two things that come to mind immediately. The first one is I actually defined an input goal. So I didn't say I want 10,000 YouTube subscribers by date X. I said I'm gonna post at least 2 videos per month for at least 6 months. So I defined a clear timeline. I defined a input goal, so volume of content published, and I committed to that. So if I stopped, I would break my own word and I would lose my integrity towards myself, right? And so that input goal and commitment that I didn't have prior, there I was just, oh, I should do some YouTube. And then I did YouTube for 6 weeks. And then I was like, damn, it actually takes a lot of time and I need to make money as well. So it doesn't make me money. So I should probably focus on building the agency first. So that was, and I didn't have an editing team then. So it was more time on me to actually edit the videos myself. The second realization is just, as long as you speak your truth, you always are going to have fun with it. But the more discrepancy there is between who you really are and the image that you portray online, the more of a toll and the more draining this whole YouTube game is, slash the bigger the toll it has on you. And so what I enjoy right now is that, doing this for 5 years now, I actually have some experiences and some learnings I can actually share, which just makes it more fun to me. But I also don't want to discourage people from doing it if they are still acquiring knowledge. Then it's just a different content strategy. It's more about synthesizing what you learn from others while talking about the experiments you're doing versus already talking about things you learned because of, running an agency for 3+ years. So those would be kind of two takeaways. And then, I can already sense a return. We are booking sales calls from YouTube. We have a lot of people on calls saying, yeah, I checked out the vlogs. Super cool. I also get a lot of people calling me out for being a Daniel Dallin copy. So, wanted to address that elephant as well. How do you feel about it? Are you riding the Daniel wave? Or how do you feel? Do you feel like it's dying down a little bit again? Or what's your view on that?
I think, yes, it's dying down again. I think in the end of the day, though, it's like what he did was in a certain bubble, create a way, like just create a new wave of people that created content. I think that is just a net positive no matter how you see it. Like, it's like
100%.
Nobody, like there's no reason to be mad about that. And I think then like just the way it's packaged just makes it very easy to process, right? Like you see some guy on a laptop, you see the words POV and you just know what it is without, you have to write a whole sentence saying, hey, this is me, I'm a founder, this is going to be a normal day in my life where I talk about my struggles and learnings, and blah, blah, blah. You just see 3 letters and that just conveys that whole message and that whole aesthetic in like 1 second. And I think that's the power of writing that. And I think like we both did that to a certain extent. I think for me right now, it's like, it doesn't feel as authentic because I'm also building a different kind of business. So I'm trying to just trying to find my own kind of aesthetic direction, and it's honestly not working as well, but I think in the midterm it will work better because it's just more me than anything else. But yeah, I mean, maybe last thing I think, because I do watch his videos, I think one thing that I thought was really striking was he does one video on his gear setup, and my favorite part about that video is that he literally, like at minute 5, he's like, yeah, I have no idea about this gear and I don't know how these cameras work. I just press record. And I think that's how a lot of people should think about it. Like, it's just like, just do it. Like he just did it, and he just crossed 100,000 subscribers, I think last week or so. And the story is so much more important than what gear you use or how well you understand your gear, especially when you're building a business and not being a full-time content creator.
Beautiful takeaway.
What are your thoughts? Because I know that you're a bit closer to that wave.
Hey, I mean, it's not like he invented vlogging, even in a business context. For me, the godfather of business vlogs is Gary Vee. And he's the person who inspired me to actually start building my personal brand back in 2017, 2018. He's also the reason I started vlogging back then. And he was, for example, also the reason why Ryan Serhant started on YouTube back then. And what I'm observing right now is that it's just, Gary had that huge push from like 2017 to 2019. And then it kind of died down. People got the message, and he still has a big audience, but he's not like the one influencing pop culture and the one that people are referencing. I don't even know if everyone on this call right now would know who Gary even was. It's almost like Alex or Mosey took his spot in terms of like online marketing culture. But what I'm observing with Daniel is that he brought this new vibe, this sauce, this aesthetic to the same playbook that Gary Vee had. And he's creating a new wave, a new hype cycle, a new bull run for business vlogs. And he in turn is also influencing his network and people to do the same because they resonate with his aesthetic. So, for example, Bruno Casanovas from Nude Project, which is, I think, the biggest streetwear brand in Latin America, huge in Spain. He's the founder. He appeared in Daniel's vlog, and then Daniel supposedly convinced him to start a YouTube channel, and now he started his business vlog and is pulling even higher numbers than Daniel. And we're seeing the same with Alvaro Gellins. I think that's his name. He runs different creator brands. For example, Loco Chicken. He just relaunched his YouTube channel. And so you can see the effect that Daniel has on his network, and then of course people who are watching the videos, and is creating a new wave, a new bull run, but it's nothing new in itself. So that would be kind of my observation of this whole YouTube business vlog trend. And of course, me personally, I right now have POV in every thumbnail, and the titles are very similar. I didn't do in the first three. It was funny. I relaunched my YouTube channel right as Daniel Dallin was blowing up. So I didn't know him when I relaunched. And then we saw he was blowing up. And so we also applied the POV thumbnail. And the first video I did it immediately was my most viral one. So it was like, okay, if we can pull in views and people get to see my content, then let's ride the wave for now. But on the other hand, I also feel like it's time to slowly find our own aesthetic in terms of just what do the thumbnails look like? What does the title sound like? Just to make it a little more my own and not to be categorized as the Daniel Dallin copy, because it is funny how like 50% of the feedback I get, or people like telling me about my vlogs, giving me feedback in person, they're like, oh yeah, you're copying Daniel, huh? Like I got like cynical comments like this that I was like, yeah,
That's crazy.
Yeah,
That's
the
actually crazy.
thumbnails and the titles are very similar. I see that.
Yeah.
But otherwise, like watch the video and tell me if I'm just a copy personality wise, because
Honestly,
the business
like,
vlogging.
if you just change the thumbnail, I feel like that would do everything, right? Like it's not even like
Probably.
that big of a copy in like the actual content sense, right? It's really just the aesthetic of that thumbnail, which essentially is just a logical thing to write at the start, right? Especially if you don't have a following or you're still building that.
Yeah, I think that's it as well. Otherwise, we just got to keep on riding the wave anyway and keep on doing our thing, heads down, committing to the input goals.
Yes, sir.
Beautiful. So we talked about the content workflow, about the content mix, touched on personal branding just now. One question surrounding that, perhaps, Matthias, for like other founders considering, to build their personal brands. What's one piece of advice in terms of introducing the content motion to your day-to-day life? And should some people maybe wait with it, or any piece of advice, one thing you would tell people who want to grow their audiences?
I think on one side is like there's no reason to wait for it, because like the way I started LinkedIn was actually I just had a post and it went okay. I think I got like 50 likes on it, but I actually hated it personally. But I told myself I'm not going to delete stuff like that. That was just my mantra for building. So then you just create content to get better, and the only way to hide the bad stuff is just to be better, and you kind of just pushing yourself. And at some point, I think the other side is like nobody really cares. Like the only person that really cares that much is you yourself. So building a brand, like it's just like you just do it, go for it. And if you think it's cringe, like that's like the worst case. That's the worst that can happen, right? Like nobody else is gonna reach out to you like, hey, like especially people that are like successful, right? Like if you see somebody post on LinkedIn and it's like kind of a cringe post, like do you think that's cringe? No, you think, hey, that's awesome that he's trying. I'm excited to see where this goes in a few months, right? So if you look at that from like people that successfully built like fresh good LinkedIn brands, for example, like I'd say at the end, like if the worst that could happen is people that see it that are successful think, hey, at least he's trying, like that's a good starting point. And then it's just like just getting better every day and making sure that you you're personally improving what you're doing and not just mindlessly posting content every day, like via. But maybe one quick answer, like just like this whole like AI stuff, right? Like just like if you're doing ChatGPT LinkedIn posts, like that's what you shouldn't do, because I think that's where you turn off your brain at the end of the day, and I think that's like, especially when you're just getting started, like just set the goal, like do X amount of posts and never have AI write it for you, because that's such a pitfall, because it's not the same. Like it really isn't. Once you have a flow, once you have a style, like sure, use it to be more consistent, just get a jump start, but don't use that as your jump start, because that's not going to work. Or at least I've never seen it work before.
Well said, man. So in terms of content, how many hours do you put into content per week? What's kind of a rough time allocation? What's your timely budget?
You asked that question before. I don't remember what I answered last time. Let's just say net about a day, like 1 day a week. I think that's in total what actually gets lost or gets invested in content.
Okay, that's a big investment, but a long-term one that hopefully will just compound as you go.
What's your investment? How much do you put in for content?
So I have my LinkedIn content call once per week. That's 1 hour. I spend about 2 hours per week tops reviewing content, writing content. So let's say about 2 to 3 hours on the LinkedIn side. Say 2. And then I'm filming every day, but that just happens as like a side product. It's almost like a habit now. So let's say another hour of filming, then reviewing the vlogs, another hour per week. I'd say about 5 hours per week right now. 5 hours.
That's super solid.
Yeah.
High efficiency.
Yeah, it actually is quite high efficiency. I couldn't do it without my team, without killer content strategists having my back. And I'm ready to put in more time. I'm ready to bump it up to 10 hours, do more of these things. So yeah, it's yielded the highest ROI of everything I do, yet I don't have the hard metrics and benchmarks to say exactly how I would calculate the ROI. I just know it works. Every sales call, every demo application, every recruiting lead, and so many things you can't begin to anticipate, opportunities that emerge just through building relationships offline and online, one-to-one and one-to-many. And then it's just a flywheel, and it's been a lot of fun. And 5 hours right now, 10 hours in the future. That's kind of my time stack. Looking at wrapping up this first Content Founder show edition, Matthias, one question I'm curious about, since, some people tell me that's a little, forced and cringe to really be so excited about double meaning of content. We create content and we live a content life, but I'm just all for it. So with all your projects, Matthias, with all your projects and ventures and ideas and content creation efforts, how do you stay content while juggling everything? Is there something you do outside of work? Any practices, habits, whatever it is? What helps you live a content life?
Running, I think. It's like it is a hype right now. It's a life. We go running, like I feel like at least a few times a month right now. I think it's the best. Like yesterday I went with 2 friends. We met up at 6:45, went for a run, got coffee, and I was at my desk at 8, and I had already hung out with 2 really good friends, had amazing conversations, had a coffee, and the day hadn't even started yet, Like that's, I don't know, that just makes me so happy. So content.
Man, it's beautiful. It is the most addictive drug at the moment. It's just running. You're 100% right.
It's so
any
simple.
type of exercise, really. Yeah. But yeah, it makes every day just easier, lighter. Okay, nice.
Final one. What makes you content right now? What's your content lifestyle?
Sea dips while I'm in Spain every day, going for a sea dip. The runs as well. Ooh. I'm on the running wave as well. But also, can't stress enough how important the gym is. Like lifting weights. Like running is what clears the mind and makes you feel light. and clear. Gym for me is what makes me feel grounded and confident. Kind of. That's how the synergy between those two forms of exercise. So I'm really, really enjoying just going all in on sports and almost living like an athlete a little bit. And aside from that, intentional breaths. I'm like this 5-5 breath. Have you heard of that? Rick Rubin and Andrew Huberman talked about it. Oh, we did it. True. We did it in the
Good stuff.
yet to be released Content Cafe, Rossini co-work sesh, right?
Good stuff.
Yeah. I mean, the base for a content life for me is just practicing awareness and taking a 6-second breath in through the nose, a 6-second breath out through the nose as many times per day as possible. That's my minimum viable mindfulness practice these days. And yeah, that with sports and doing something you actually enjoy. Work feels like play. Wouldn't want to have it any other way. Okay, Matthias. To wrap up, I have a lightning round prepped. Shouldn't take too long. Just like rapid fire questions.
All right. Shoot me.
All right. This is like it's an MVP. It's a work in progress. Okay. But we're going to see what sticks for the next session. All right. This first one I stole from Tim Ferriss. And the question goes, if you could have a billboard up for the entire world to see, what would it say?
Fuck, I'm biased now, but I would I would just say breathe through your fucking nose.
In and out, baby. All right, next one. What's your favorite tool or app right now? What's your go-to tool or app if you had to choose one?
Easy, I can do a product demo right now. Wait, can I? Hold it. This guy here, Claude.
Claude.
I just love that guy. It's just the better ChatGPT, at least for me.
Not only for writing, for everything, even reasoning and strategy, everything.
Yeah, it's hard to describe, but it just feels like he's just a little bit nicer. And sometimes just that kindness gets you, you know? Just be kind. Be kind to people.
Remember to say thank you to the chatbots as well.
100%.
All right, next one. Dinner guests. If you could have a dinner with any 3 individuals, dead or alive, who would they be?
Ooh, interesting. So dead people, I want to take apart Vincent van Gogh's mind. I think that would be a really insightful conversation. Then alive, I really want to get a talk. I'd love to, like, we're building AI, so Andre Karpathy would be amazing. Like, he feels like the contributor to a lot of AI stuff right now. So that would be, personally, I think, a really huge one. And then last one of the controversial guys. I'm somewhere between Elon and Kanye, just because I want to understand how they think, because they both just don't make sense to me. But in a weirdly positive way. So I wanna take that apart.
Beautiful lineup. Yeah, if you have a +1 for me on that table as well, I'm in. Sweet. What's a dream project you haven't worked on yet but would love to do some point in the future? One just dream project. It's gonna happen at some point.
Easy. I already have the whole Notion vision board, so we're essentially halfway there. But cafe. We're just gonna open Cafe Rossini. It's gonna be a real thing. It's gonna be the coziest, most aesthetic, best coffee, best vibe cafe in the world, and you're all invited to join.
Ish, man, double tap on that one. And then, okay, another one. What's the book or podcast you recommend most often, or just the one that you would recommend right now?
Right now, I think I recommend it 3 times this month. Is just the book called Breathe, because we just talked about that as well. And it's just literally a book that talks about breathing, and they do a practical exercise. They do this guy. They tape their nose shut for 2 weeks, and then they tape their mouth shut for 2 weeks, and you just see and read the difference, and it's kind of eye-opening, honestly, or nose-opening in that sense. But just, yeah, stay grounded, breathe better.
Beautiful. Okay, Matthias, this was a whole lot of fun. I appreciate your time. You're a coffee inspiration that you brought to this show today. And of course, if you have anything we didn't talk about, anything you want to leave folks with, now's your time. Is there anything you want to share? Anything top of mind? Anything we didn't discuss before we wrap up?
No, I think we did it. I think we key takeaways: do content, don't wait for it, breathe, and be kind.
And drink a whole lot of coffee. Be it honest or fancy. The cups are empty as well.
Done.
Last drip, and that concludes our coffee inspo sesh. Thank you everyone for watching, if you watch until here. And we're gonna publish this probably on YouTube. Hey, now I'm gonna have 1 week where I'm gonna be able to publish 2 YouTube videos, so that's nice. Perhaps I'm also gonna publish it as a podcast. I don't know. The Content Founder Show. This was the birth. And I'm very, very honored to have you as the first guest, the first collaborator, Matthias. So with that said, take some deep breaths, have a lovely rest of your day, and see you in the next one.
Thanks for having me.